Let me add that Dominic Peters is my colleague at LAMSAD at CNRS, who was my colleague, because now I'm going to be here. But he will be also teaching in the PhD program. The famous. He's ranked number 3 or 4.
It changes every day. It changes every day. Thank you, Rita. Thank you, everyone. I had sent slides 2 days ago to Rita, and then I got a very tough revise and resubmit. He said, I like your presentation. It should take place in 2 days, but the slides should be rewritten entirely. This is not what I want. So I've done them yesterday night. Initially, I gave you the secret to actually get admitted to a PhD program in economics. This morning I learned it's a letter of mine, but it's not. It's a 6-letter code, but so it's no longer no slides. You'll have to ask me afterwards, right? So when you're thinking about a PhD in game theory in economics, which is my field, perhaps you think of what you're going to do as something like you know, formulas and you know, like what physics is about. But that's not at all what it's in economics. What it's actually like is more like that. We model, all right? So we choose our own sandbox. We're not studying the laws of nature. We're studying human behavior. And so what it involves is a lot of creativity in modeling, all right? So we try to write models that are not necessarily reflecting quantitatively what's going on. We're trying to explain, to understand, and to design, all right? Jason already mentioned designing when it comes to game theory. So analytical skills are important. I wrote that at the bottom, solving. But it's not a mathematical problem per se. It's a modeling problem, first of all. So it's not like in mathematics where there is a list of problems to be solved. Surely there are a few in game theory, but mostly when it comes to economics, it's up to you guys to come up with interesting questions to study and puzzles to understand. So I'm not going to tell you what open questions are. I think it would be quite pretentious. It's up to you young guys to come up with those questions. We'll always be surprised anyhow if we do a forecast, but let me just give you a few examples of problems that we looked at, and you know, as I said, it's a matter of perspective. So let me first, given that I have little time, give you a puzzle, and I'm not going to give you the solution, but as an economist, I look at everything thinking, why is it the way it is, and I'm not happy with answers such as it's because of society or that's the way it's always been. So an example is this. So this is, you all know what that is. It's an engagement ring. Why do engagement rings exist? All right, now you might again say, well, that's a ridiculous question. I have no choice. I'm a boy and I'm going to have to give an engagement ring. End of the story, all right? As an economist, I wonder, why? All right, you might say, that's always been like that. Actually, no. It's very recent. It's only since the Second World War. Before that, it was extremely rare. I'm not going to tell you the answer, but I'm just going to give you a couple of hints. You all know it's asymmetric. It only goes one way, sorry, from the man to the bride. A second hint is if she breaks up the engagement, she has to return the ring. Sorry, that's the rule. All right? And I'm not going to tell you more. So I'm going to leave that open. But as an economist, as a game theorist, I'm going to try to understand, okay, I gave you just the rules. The boy gives it to the girl. The girl has to return if she breaks up. Why? That's what an economist studies, all right? And we do know the answer. All right. There are lots of problems where, which are more serious, but what I wanted to just show is that it's very broad. It goes from such simple things as engagement rings to OPEC. Morocco is not part of OPEC. I'm a game theorist in an econ department, so I'm very much interested in repeated games, and the OPEC is a beautiful case study. It's an example of how to do things and how not to do things. So I'm gonna break a little secret here. If you do something called collusion, you're trying to keep prices up by restricting output, all right? And it's not in each player's individual interest. Each country would like to produce a bit more because they have a small impact on the price, but it's collectively a bad idea, right? So they need to use a repeated game strategy to enforce somehow cooperation, all right, which is the way they look at it. We as antitrust would view that as collusion, not good for consumers. All right, so the OPEC has two goals: keep prices high by restricting output and keeping prices stable so that those down consumers don't want to go away from you know, their addiction to gas and move to electric cars, etc. All right, so I'll just give you a little anecdote to show that what is completely obvious to game theorists wasn't to OPEC. So in the 80s, they decided we need to keep the prices stable and high. And stability is tricky because, you know, demand fluctuates over time. So Saudi Arabia, which by far is the largest producer, decided to use the following scheme. It suggested to the other countries the following scheme. It says, look, Iraq, Iran, etc., you produce that much. We can't really see it because it's very hard to control, especially with pipelines. But to keep the price stable, we, Saudi Arabia, will just be the swing producers, which means we will just scrutinize the price of oil in Amsterdam and just make sure that whatever we have to produce to keep the price pegged at our target level, that's what we will supply. All right? Now, if you're game theorists, you're thinking, how stupid is that? Now, what do you think happens if Saudi Arabia says, I'm the swing producer? It's wonderful for all the other countries, because now, if they cheat and produce more, not only will they, you know, sell more, but the price will not even go down. Why? Because Saudi Arabia will take a cut in its output, thinking, gee, you know, demand must be really weak this year, right? You know, the price seems to be going down. I just have to restrict output further. And so that happened from 81 to 86. Every year, Saudi Arabia had to, every month actually, had to reduce their output because they're thinking, gee, it's crazy. Our target price is so hard to maintain. I have to cut output, I have to cut output. And it was looking around saying, anyone cheating? And Iran, Iraq was saying, no, don't look at us. We're just, you know, sticking with our quotas, all right? So in 86, finally, Saudi Arabia realized this can't continue. We're all brothers, but something's not going right here, all right? So they changed repeated game strategies from that point on. Now, it's kind of obvious for us game theorists, but it's interesting to think about, you know, to realize that even such sophisticated players, such important stakes, they were failing to see the obvious. All right, so as I mentioned earlier on, we're trying to understand, we're trying to explain, we're trying to help. Now, obviously, I'm not saying we should help the OPEC, but it's wonderful to see how game theory can help explain why they failed in the 80s and why they succeeded at other times, how the quotas are designed and how they should be designed if they actually want to manage to sustain collusion. There are other applications. It's not just about understanding, it's about designing. I'm going to be very brief for the sake of time, especially since Jason mentioned that as well. There are lots of applications where the rules, you know, as a game theorist, I love situations where the rules are very simple. OPEC is a lot more complicated because it's the real world. You know, it's not clear what the timing is, what the information is. But if you're thinking about auctions, it's a lot simpler. It's a lot simpler because the auctioneer designs the rules, right? And so we game theorists have been involved in designing auctions. And just to be clear, designing an auction is not just about making money for the auctioneer. It's also about efficiency. It's about thinking about, Jason mentioned the spectrum auctions. It's about trying to design the auction in a way that the winners, if you're thinking about cell phone operators, have regions of Morocco, say, that make sense. You don't want your operator, your phone, to actually have reception or not, depending on whether you move 1 kilometer to the right or the left. So we have to think about constraints that are very difficult to deal with, and game theorists have been quite successful in doing so. It's not just about making money, it's not just about efficiency, it's also about problems without transfers. So another application of game theory that has been very useful in economics is about matching problems, right? So I don't think it's been mentioned. So kidney exchange, so the way kidneys are exchanged in the US among organ donors has been revolutionized in the last 20 years thanks to game theory, right? So we have problems that, so some people need kidneys, some people are willing to give kidneys, but not every donor is, has a kidney that fits every possible needy recipient. There are lots of constraints depending on blood type, etc. And it was done quite naively before, and game theorists have been quite instrumental in helping shape that. So I'm just trying to illustrate that with those examples, that it's not just about understanding the world, it's also about designing a better world. All right, this is where I'm going to leave it. I'm still, anyone has an idea about engagement rings? I should ask Bruno. Thank you.